What's up everybody, Maran here for another weekly update. So there's lots of news to go over here this week. And first big thing, I think Jeep has one of the first big debuts here of 2021. And that is that they have revealed the 2021 Jeep Grand Cherokee L. So this is an all new generation of the Grand Cherokee. And this is a new 3-row version. That's why it's called the L. The non-L version of the Grand Cherokee with 2 rows will be coming later this year. But it's entirely new. It's on an all new platform that isn't shared with anything else within FCA. It's also unibody like it always has been, so this platform won't even be shared with the new Grand Wagoneer that's coming. So that's also coming later this year, but that'll be on a totally separate thing as well. So it runs a regular multi-link suspension as standard, but you can also get an air suspension that's optional, which can raise the vehicle 2.5 inches. There's 3 different 4-wheel drive systems, the standard automatic one, the Quadra Track 2 with low range, and then there's also the top system, which adds an electronic limited slip diff. They all can disconnect and become rear-wheel drive when they're not needed. And I just want to add too that the looks are really striking. You know, it has a lot of influence from that Grand Wagoneer, which we'll be seeing will be even a little bit more bold, I think, down the road. But you know, I think it looks really good, very modern, but still very much a Jeep, and I think it's great. So as far as the engines and transmissions, that is one part that is carryover. So the base engine is still the 3.6 liter Pentastar V6, and it does 290 horsepower, 257 pound-feet of torque. It can tow 6,200 pounds, and then the 5.7 liter V8 is still available. That does 357 horsepower, 390 pound-feet of torque, and it can tow 7,200 pounds. So pretty standard stuff there for both of those. They both run through an 8-speed automatic like they did in the past as well. Later this year, though, they did confirm there will be a 4xe hybrid version that'll be available too, although we don't have any details on that yet, but I would assume it'll be the same system that you get in the Wrangler 4xe that was just revealed. So that's going to be a turbo 4-cylinder combined with electric motors to do a total of 375 horsepower and 470 pound-feet of torque if it is the same as that Wrangler. And so that would be actually the punchiest version of the Grand Cherokee L here, you know, if that is actually what they end up doing with that, which I can't imagine them doing less power than what the Wrangler offers. So I'd be willing to bet that's going to be what you're going to see. And that would be a good amount of power. So Jeep hasn't said anything about the performance versions yet. So as far as actual fast versions beyond the hybrid potential there, they haven't said anything yet. I'm guessing, you know, maybe they'll wait, you know, maybe even a model year or two before they reveal, you know, an SRT version or, you know, something like that. We'll have to see if the, you know, Trackhawk version returns. They also didn't announce a Trailhawk version, so the most off-road version you can get, I think, is the Overland trim, which has an off-road package you can add on to it. But anyway, so we'll have to wait and see. You know, lots more stuff to be rolled out. This is just the beginning here for this Grand Cherokee generation. Also, the interior, though, is very impressive, with the top trims having a nice quilted seats. There's a Macintosh sound system, and all those screens you see are actually standard. So even base Grand Cherokee Ls get digital gauges and that 10.1-inch touchscreen infotainment system, which is fantastic. Those are both standard. And so it's going to be available in either 6 or 7 seat configurations, depending on whether you want a bench or buckets in the second row. And otherwise, it just looks very upmarket. You can get open pore wood. There's ambient lighting that's, you know, pretty bold as well, and, you know, not very subtle or anything. It looks really cool. I think they did a fantastic job on this interior. There's no pricing yet for these, but they'll be on sale this spring, which is why they're being labeled 2021 model year vehicles and not 2022s, because they're actually going to be coming here relatively soon. I mean, Jeep conservatively says summer, but they said Q2, which starts in April. So, you know, anytime, you know, I guess after April is fair game. But so short 2021 model run most likely, and then most of them will be 2022s. But awesome to see that. And some other grand news, a user on the GR86 forums found a recent trademark that Toyota applied for, and that is for the Grand Highlander. So, not the most original thing, but it actually sounds pretty nice. And so it's going to most likely be just a longer version of the Highlander that, you know, I think makes the most sense. Some people are saying it could potentially be like a successor to the Land Cruiser or something, but I don't think they would get rid of any of their, you know, historic nameplates to try and do something new and also have it related to the Highlander. So I think it's most likely a longer Highlander that they're working on, if, you know, that's what they're going to use this name for. And so, you know, we know that Toyota isn't opposed to this kind of an idea either. They, you know, heard that a lot of people wanted more space in the Lexus RX, so they made the Lexus RX L. You know, not very creative there either. So, it could be very easy. They just do the same kind of thing here with the Highlander. It isn't one of the most spacious three-row crossovers in its segment, so you lengthen it out a little bit, give it a bigger third row, more cargo space, should help it to sell better with people who need a little bit more space. And so makes a lot of sense. And I know, some people might argue, well, why don't those people just go and buy a Sequoia? And that's because the Sequoia is a gas-guzzling ancient thing. And I mean, the new Highlander interior just blows the Sequoia out of the water as far as niceties and stuff go. So, I mean, very different shoppers, I think, which is why Toyota, I think, wants to fill in the gap of people that need Sequoia space, but are not Sequoia people, so I think it's going to be a very different thing. So, interesting to hear that. And some other trademark news, though. Kia has officially revealed their new logo finally, which we've seen for several months now. But they revealed it with this big, huge Guinness World Record-breaking fireworks display, which is the largest ever launched from drones simultaneously. And so along with the new logo design, they revealed their new slogan, which is "Movement That Inspires." So, not sure, which model is going to be getting the new logo first or anything like that, but they did say they're going to have more information on January 15th. That could potentially have a little bit of a teaser as far as what they're planning to reveal this year, too. And but I think the new logo looks really good. Also, Cadillac has announced this week that they're going to be debuting their Blackwing models on February 2nd. So that's when we'll have all the details. All they've confirmed so far, we're pretty sure it's going to have roughly carryover engines from the ATSV and CTSV, although it could have more power, of course. And manual transmissions have been confirmed, and that's about all that we know for now. But the only bummer, though, is they did say it's going to be a late summer arrival. No problems there. But they do reiterate again what they said a few months back, that it will be limited availability. So expect these to be rare, hard to get, way over asking price at most dealerships, and that whole kind of thing. So unfortunately, they're not going to be very accessible, it sounds like, but I'm glad they're making them at all. So interesting, and we'll stay tuned for that. Also, a big news story this week. Many of you have been asking, even in the live stream I did this past week, about Mazda's new 6-cylinder rear-wheel drive platform. Thankfully, we finally have some new info on that this week, thanks to a new report from Nikkei. And so this report, they supposedly spoke with suppliers that claim that production of the platform is going to actually be beginning next year in 2022, and that by 2025 they're planning to produce about 300,000 units of this platform globally. And I think that's just for Mazda. We do know this platform will be shared with Lexus. I don't think that accounts for the Lexus versions, but I could be wrong. And so the interesting thing that also was revealed is that the straight six engines will be available in a variety of different setups, and they're going to range in displacement from 3 liters to 3.3 liters. So, I guess there'll be different power levels and stuff. And they also said they'll be available in gas, diesel, and Skyactiv X setups. It's possible that maybe the 3 liters a diesel, the 3.3 is a gas, or something like that too. So it might not be that we're going to have multiple gas displacements to choose from or something. And then Skyactiv X is also going to be, built in there as well, on the gas ones at least, I think. And so that's all interesting. But the story it kind of gets a little more muddy here because, originally we were thinking that this was going to debut with a swoopy rear-wheel drive, coupe here, or some type of four-door sedan at least, with the Mazda 6 needing a new redo and stuff. And so that was kind of what we were all expecting, but it sounds like an SUV will be first because they believe that the first vehicle to use the platform will be an SUV and potentially multiple SUVs, so it's probably CX-50 and CX-90 or whatever, I think is what they're planning on doing with that kind of stuff. But they also say that they'll be sold alongside their current counterparts. So I thought that was kind of a temporary thing with the CX-30 was going to be sold alongside the CX-3, but the CX-3 clearly is on its way out. It's old. But this suggests that we will see these vehicles live alongside each other, with the CX-5 being much more different from a CX-50. Obviously, if one is rear-wheel drive based, longer proportions, straight six engines versus the completely different orientation of the engines in the 4-cylinder versions and all that kind of stuff, could be much different. So that could be a decent differentiator there. And the 50 model and the 90 model and stuff like that could be the upmarket versions. And that would make sense because according to this report, the other bit of bad news here is they claim that the vehicles on this new platform will be priced significantly higher than existing models. So it sounds like the days of getting a luxurious Mazda interior for non-luxury prices might be coming to an end. I hope that they at least, retain their very nice interiors in the, simpler platforms and the older stuff that you have here currently. I think that would be a smart way to do it is, still have the CX-5 with the same very nice interior, but don't have, quite as much power with the 6-cylinder engines and the rear-wheel drive stuff. I think a lot of people still don't care about that stuff, and I think Mazda would be foolish to throw away, the front-wheel drive based stuff. I think that's going to still be their bread and butter, I think, for a long time. But, if they do want to continue to push themselves up market to be more and more premium, you have more premium models. It's kind of like a sub-brand in a way with these, models, the 30 and the 50 and the 90 and stuff. If you can charge more money, they're on a completely different platform. Still very nice vehicles, but instead of, spinning it off into, Mazda Plus or some type of luxury brand, you just keep them all under Mazda and, have them spaced out a little bit. I think that could work and make sense. We'll see how high people are willing to pay for a Mazda, though that is still going to kind of be a little bit of a thing that holds them back, I think. So we'll see. Maybe they will end up just going with a new luxury brand or something like that if they can't convert people to buy Mazdas that are $50,000. We'll have to see. But anyway, interesting to hear that report, and hopefully we continue to get more news here this year. And in some other Mazda news, so they actually officially confirmed to the Detroit Bureau that they've decided to bring the MX-30 crossover to the U.S., but they didn't say exactly when. So the MX-30, if you don't remember, was revealed for Japan, I think it was about a year or so ago, and it's very cool. It has the RX-8 style doors in the back and stuff. It's a very fun, quirky little vehicle, and it's kind of cool, and it was kind of a bummer way to get it here in the States, but it kind of made sense back then because it's an electric vehicle that has, they said they're going to have a range extender version, but then otherwise it's just an electric vehicle with not a lot of range. So we figured they wouldn't bring it here, much like how Honda won't bring the E here, because, if you don't have over 200 miles of range in your electric vehicle, it's pretty much an uphill battle here in the States. So, but anyway, but they did confirm they are bringing it here, and we'll get both the fully electric version alongside the rotary range extender version, which is something they've been working on this for like a decade, of having a small little rotary engine, but it wouldn't actually be connected to the drivetrain. It would just be there to charge the battery, exactly like the kind of setup you have in the BMW i3 with its range extender, where it doesn't actually power the vehicle, it just produces electricity to therefore keep those electric motors running. So that's how this is going to work as well. Now, as far as the version here in North America, I don't know if they're going to make adjustments here for us to have bigger batteries or any more power or anything like that. We'll have to wait and see on all that stuff. But they did also say alongside that vehicle, there's going to be a new hybrid vehicle developed specifically for North America using Toyota hybrid tech, which will be arriving at some point in the future. Now, I guess there's a version of this vehicle in Japan that has a normal gas engine up front still, but then has some type of hybrid setup or mild hybrid setup. So it could be that we're getting that version too, and that's what this is referring to, or it could be referring to something different, because, they also said that this other vehicle that's going to be hybrid using Toyota stuff is going to be the one that's built in that new factory in Alabama that Mazda is building with Toyota. So I'm not sure exactly what's what here. It's still a little bit foggy to me. But, hopefully, Mazda brings lots of great offerings here. I think the MX-30 is a great start. I think all their premium stuff's a great start. And But, as far as the MX-30 currently, if they bring it over the way it is right now, that means it's going to have a 35.5 kilowatt hour battery pack, which means you're going to have barely over 100 miles of range. I think it's like 124 miles on the European testing cycle, which is generous. That's why I say it's barely over 100 here after the EPA is done rating it. So, that's why maybe they put a bigger battery in it or something, or they just heavily push the range extender version for us here. We'll have to see. It could continue to be a niche vehicle, especially if they don't bring a normal gas version over, and it's just the rotary one and the electric thing. So we'll have to see on all that. But even the rotary range extender version will not be available in Japan even until 2022. So by the time we get it here, it's probably going to be a little bit, later. So I don't expect any of this stuff to come super soon, but they didn't say exactly when the MX-30 is even coming to the States at all. So it might be a little bit of a ways out, but it's great they're bringing it here. I'm very thankful they're bringing it here. It's refreshing to see a company bring a quirky vehicle to the States, since that's a lot of times we don't get that kind of stuff. And even though it is a crossover, at least it's, cool and different. And so I think it's, refreshing. Other stuff here. So Mitsubishi this week has revealed the refreshed 2021 Mirage, which I know many of you probably aren't that interested in. but it does get some significant tweaks, so I wanted to cover it. It gets a new front end and back end to make it look more like their SUVs. Inside it gets a standard touchscreen, which now has smartphone integration. That's a nice improvement. There's new armrests, more soft touch cloth, they say. Power is the same as before, though, meaning I think it's the least amount of power you can get in a new vehicle in 2021 here. So it's a 1.2 liter naturally aspirated 3-cylinder engine with 78 horsepower and 74 pound-feet of torque. I mean, I think this thing still weighs only like, I don't know, 20-some hundred pounds, maybe 2,000 pounds. I mean, it's super light, but still very slow. There's also going to be a new carbonite edition with sportier looks, and especially in that yellow color. It's a cool looking little thing, especially if you're nostalgic for like 80s hatchbacks, which also had about this amount of horsepower. But anyway, prices are going to be going up about $400, but they're still some of the cheapest new cars in America. You can get it starting at $15,390 with a manual transmission, which is awesome. They do continue to offer it with a manual, although I think that's only on the base model now, sadly, which is a bummer. But if you go for the automatics, I think that does add about $1,000 or so and make them a little bit more expensive. But still, I mean, you're talking about a car well under 20 grand. And so yeah, it's respectable. They continue on with the Mirage here in the States, even though it's pretty un-American car at this point, with everyone wanting something massive and super powerful and stuff. And on the opposite end of the spectrum here, really changing gears, Bentley has revealed the Bentayga hybrid, which I think is actually probably the most luxurious plug-in hybrid you can get currently. And so it takes the new styling from the regular Bentayga refresh we just saw this past year and applies it to the same plug-in hybrid powertrain that's been in the Bentayga for a couple of years now as well. So that means it's a 3-liter twin-turbo V6 and an electric motor that combined to do 443 horsepower and 516 pound-feet of torque. It'll likely do the same 18 miles of electric range as well, although maybe could go up or down one or so. But anyway, it's great to see them continuing the plug-in hybrid thing for the Bentayga. I'm sure it's not super popular, but I think it's a good stepping stone for them before they do all the completely electric stuff like they're talking about in the 2030s. And so I think it's cool they continue that. And I still just love the Bentayga. I think it looks so good, especially that interior. I mean, I just want to live in that interior. So anyway, another stuff. Moving on to more electric vehicle news here. There's a new report in Automotive News this week claiming to have some new details about the Honda and GM partnership, their electric vehicle partnership that they're doing. So, it was announced back in 2020 that they were going to work together on 2 electric vehicles that Honda would get, and they would be specific for the US. So I guess Honda thinks that their global electric models won't work for us because, again, we want to have 1 million miles of electric range with all of our vehicles and stuff. And so that's why they're giving us this stuff and not the awesome little Honda E that the rest of the world gets. So anyway, obviously we already know the Honda vehicles will use GM's platform, which is the Ultium platform with the electric batteries that are, the GM setup with the pouch cells and all that kind of stuff. But this new report claims that the Chevy plant in Mexico that actually builds the Blazer currently will be building the electric Honda crossover in 2023, and that the other vehicle will actually be an electric Acura, which is the first time we've heard that Acura is going to be in the mix here. They're going to get the other one, and that'll be built in Tennessee at the old Saturn plant, starting in 2024. And that plant is actually going to start building the Cadillac Lyriq in 2022. So, GM's doing their stuff first and then adding the Honda and the Acura stuff after, if this report is true. The insiders also told Automotive News that the crossovers will be about the same size as the Lyriq as well. So it's kind of interesting if they're actually going to be kind of competitive, especially the Acura. A little bit of a curveball there. And so they say, the vehicle will be, if it's the same length as the Lyriq, that means it's going to be about 4 inches or so longer than an Acura RDX if it's exact. I think they're pretty rough with their sizing. So I would assume it's going to be something around the same size as an RDX. For both the Honda and the Acura, I think. And so even though GM will be building the vehicles on their platform, and even though it's actually been reported they will get OnStar and Super Cruise potentially as well, which are, I think, especially Super Cruise would be awesome. It sounds like everything else will be unique to Honda and Acura. Everything that you encounter and interact with will be Honda and Acura, as well as the designs and all that kind of stuff. So hopefully this will be separate enough that it doesn't discourage people too much. Because you have to keep in mind, all these EV platforms are like skateboards. It's literally like a Lego set where you just, pop on whatever body you want, everything else. I mean, they don't even have to drive the same because you're essentially just having the same electric motors, yes, but there's nothing unique about electric motors with any of these electric vehicles, honestly. So you have electric motors, you're going to have, probably a single speed transmission, and you have the batteries, and that's it. So, what's underneath the body and the interior is going to get less and less important as we go through, this electric car revolution here. And so, I am not too upset about this. I know some people will probably, cringe at that news, but I think it could actually end up working out okay. So we'll have to wait and see. Speaking of the Lyriq, Cadillac briefly announced this week they're going to have more details for their 33-inch infotainment system in the Lyriq next week. So CES is next week, so there's going to be lots of techie stuff next week with all that. But another tech news here in the car world, and screen news in particular, Mercedes has revealed their new Hyperscreen, which will be in the electric EQS. And so they still haven't revealed the rest of the car here. We've seen spy photos. We have a pretty good idea of what it looks like and stuff, but the screen is really impressive. So originally, if you saw some spy photos of the EQS in the past, it had a smaller screen, basically the same screen you see in the new S-Class that just debuted. That sounds like it's going to be the base screen of the EQS, because this thing is completely different. As you can see, it spans the entire dashboard. It's totally flush and integrated. It's a curved 56-inch wide panel. It's not an entire screen. There's 3 LED displays that are just cleverly hidden, much like how Mercedes, has their 2 screens currently that they blend together, with a little bit of an optical illusion with the piano black stuff in between. But this is kind of similar, just on steroids, it seems. But it is, speaking of steroids, the computing in this thing is crazy. They're saying it's going to be running 24 gigs of RAM and an 8-core CPU. It also has a new AI system that's powered by those, that hardware. And so the AI is supposed to learn your most frequent actions in the infotainment and stuff, how often you do them, when you do them, why you do them, so that it can actually intelligently suggest those things. And that's not radically different. We have that kind of stuff already in our phones where, Siri wants to suggest, would you like to send a message to this person? Because you've done it a few times in the past. Your car is going to do that as well, at least the EQS here, if that's what they're going for. Hopefully it's a little bit more accurate, because I don't know about you guys, but my Siri isn't super accurate with, what it's suggesting. I'm like, no, why would I do that? But hopefully the car isn't, too annoying with any of that stuff. So that's interesting. And so we'll see how that all plays out in practice. Thankfully, I haven't heard any mention of gesture controls yet, which I think hopefully will be one of those things that's thrown into the dustbin of automotive tech and just is something they're giving up on, because I think the gesture thing is a bad idea. But anyway, all these new screens in electric cars, they definitely are starting to make Tesla's screen seem pretty old-fashioned. Between the Cadillac Lyriq screen, this screen, everything's going to have these crazy displays. And so we'll have to see if Tesla finally overhauls their interiors here someday. But anyway, interesting to hear that. And some other tech and car news all combined into one. Chinese car startup Byton, that's planning to have all their electric vehicles they're rolling out, just like a bunch of other new startups. They just announced that they've partnered with Foxconn, which is the company that builds the iPhones for everyone in the world. They're going to be building this electric SUV for Byton starting in 2022. And they also have a partnership to build electric vehicles with Fiat Chrysler that they announced, I think, last year. There's no word as far as how that's going to play out, especially with the new Stellantis merger with FCA and Peugeot and stuff. Who knows how that's all going to play out. So we'll have to see about that. But interesting to hear that now we're actually going to have cell phone manufacturers building these electric cars, at least some of them. So pretty wild stuff here. And so interesting to hear that. And the last news story this week is going back to sports cars here, but unfortunately still electric for all of you who don't enjoy the electric stuff. So according to a new report in Autocar here, British car company MG, which is used to be based in the UK and is now based in China, they have approved supposedly their electric sports car for production. So they made a concept in 2017 called the E-Motion, and supposedly it's going to build upon that, but it's going to have radically different styling from even that concept. Which admittedly looks very Mazda-like, so I'm glad they're going to kind of make it a little bit more unique. But so they're going to have some type of new styling, but that same type of vehicle will be going on sale sometime at the end of 2021, they're saying, which sounds really soon. It's going to be a 4-seater, all-wheel drive, electric 2-door. So, I guess stuff can be sped up a little bit with the production and development stuff. If, again, you're working with a skateboard platform, you just put, this cool body on it and you're done. And so, anyway, the old concept claimed a sub 4 second 0 to 60 time and 300 miles of electric range. we'll see if they can actually, fulfill those types of numbers. Even though that concept debuted in 2017, 300 miles of range was a big stretch back then. Even these days, it's a pretty tall order to do 300 miles of range. So, not super optimistic it'll hit that, but we'll have to wait and see. And then also on top of that, this is probably a moot point for most of us here in the States anyway, because it sounds like we probably won't get this here in the U.S. Just because they have no dealer network. It'd be a huge uphill battle. I'm sure they're going to try and sell this stuff in Europe and the U.K. and stuff first before they try and sell any of that here in the States, which is kind of a bummer because they also are planning a cool roadster called the Cyberster, which will be an electric roadster, and that probably is going to have a similar styling, so that was the most recent thing they showed. So expect styling like that even for the coupe version. But those all sound really cool. It would be cool if they brought them over here, but I wouldn't hold my breath for that. But anyway, cool to see those. But yeah, so that's it for all the news this week, guys. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this weekly update. Thank you guys very much for watching. I hope you continue to stay safe and healthy. I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care.